Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a naval showdown that's going to get really interesting. China's mighty aircraft carrier Shandong CV-17 facing off against the Philippines' newly imagined BRP Bayani. Now, this isn't just about ships floating in the ocean. This is about technology, strategy, and the story of two nations with very different approaches to naval power. On one side, you've got the Shandong, China's first indigenously built aircraft carrier, a symbol of Beijing's growing military reach and a beast designed to project power across the seas. On the other side, there's the BRP Bayani, a vessel representing the grit and determination of the Philippine Navy, standing tall as a defender of sovereignty and national pride in contested waters. Imagine this, a massive carrier slicing through the South China Sea, fighter jets roaring off its deck, backed by one of the largest navies in the world. Now picture a leaner, more tactical warship, not as big, not as heavily armed, but built with resilience, agility, and purpose, ready to fight for its flag. This isn't just a clash of steel, it's a clash of philosophies. One is about sheer dominance, while the other is about defense and survival. In today's breakdown, we'll explore what makes the Shandong such a feared powerhouse, what gives the BRP Bayani its unique identity, and then we'll put them side by side to see how these two very different ships measure up. Stick around, because by the end you'll see why this matchup says a lot more than just ship versus ship. It tells the story of power, pride, and the future of naval warfare in Asia. Now let's talk about the giant in the room, China's Shandong CV-17. This isn't just another ship. This is a statement. The Shandong is China's very first aircraft carrier that they built themselves, officially commissioned into the People's Liberation Army Navy in December 2019. For China, this was more than just steel and technology. It was proof that they could stand among the world's top naval powers. The ship itself is massive, over 300 meters long and displacing around 70,000 tons. To give you perspective, that's like a floating city on the water. What makes the Shandong special is its ability to carry an air wing of around 40 aircraft, including J-15 fighter jets, helicopters for anti-submarine warfare, and early warning aircraft. Those fighters taking off from its ski jump deck give China the ability to project air power far beyond its coastline, which is exactly what Beijing wants as it expands its influence in the South China Sea and beyond. The design of the Shandong is based on China's first carrier, the Liaoning, but with several upgrades. It has a redesigned island for better command and control, improved aircraft handling capacity, and a more efficient hangar system. It's not nuclear-powered like America's supercarriers, but it's still formidable in the region. And remember, this is just the start for China. They're already working on even bigger carriers like the Fujian, but the Shandong remains a symbol of pride because it was their first homegrown one. Beyond the specs, what really makes the Shandong important is the message it sends. When it sails through the South China Sea, it's not just moving metal across water. It's a signal. It says China has the reach, the confidence, and the muscle to defend what it claims. For smaller nations in the region, seeing the Shandong up close is like watching a giant shadow fall over the horizon. It brings intimidation, but also the reminder that balance in the seas is shifting. So when you think about the Shandong, don't just think of it as a warship. Think of it as a tool of influence. It's not only about firepower, it's about presence. Wherever the Shandong sails, it's backed by a fleet of destroyers, submarines, and supply ships. It's not meant to fight alone. It's meant to lead, to project dominance, and to remind the world that China is here to stay. Now let's shift our focus to the BRP Bayani. While it doesn't have the size or raw power of a massive aircraft carrier like the Shandong, the Bayani represents something different: determination, defense, and national pride. For the Philippines, a ship like the BRP Bayani isn't about global domination. It's about protecting home waters, guarding sovereignty, and standing tall in one of the most contested maritime regions in the world. The Bayani, whose name itself means hero in Filipino, symbolizes the spirit of a navy that has long been underestimated but continues to rise. The Philippine Navy may not have the budget or resources of superpowers like China or the United States, but what it does have is strategy, adaptability, and a strong will to defend its maritime territory. Ships like the Bayani are leaner, faster, and built for multi-role tasks, from patrol and surveillance to supporting allies and responding quickly in crises. Now let's talk about what makes a vessel like the BRP Bayani important. Unlike the Shandong, which relies heavily on fighter jets and a massive fleet around it, the Bayani would focus on mobility and versatility. It could carry advanced sensors, anti-ship missiles, and close-in defense systems. Its design would prioritize quick maneuvers and the ability to operate effectively in littoral or shallow waters, where larger ships struggle. And while it wouldn't host dozens of aircraft like an aircraft carrier, it could operate helicopters or drones to expand its eyes and reach over the sea. What's really interesting is how the Bayani represents the Philippines' larger naval modernization efforts. In recent years, the Philippines has been upgrading its fleet with frigates, missile systems, and coastal defense. The Bayani is imagined as the type of ship that embodies this shift, from older, hand-me-down vessels to a more modern force that can stand its ground. It's not about matching China ship for ship, that's impossible. It's about creating enough deterrence to make any aggressor think twice. Think about it this way. When a ship like the Bayani sails under the Philippine flag, it's not just hardware on the ocean, it's a statement of sovereignty. Every patrol, every mission, every deployment is about saying, these are our waters and we will defend them. For the Filipino people, that's where the Bayani gets its true strength, not from being the biggest or the most powerful, but from representing resilience and the courage to hold the line. So while the Shandong is about dominance and projection, the BRP Bayani is about resistance and protection. It's David to the Goliath across the sea. But history has shown us many times that determination, strategy, and heart can sometimes balance out raw power. So now the big question. What happens when we put the Shandong CV-17 and the BRP Bayani side by side? At first glance, it feels almost unfair. The Shandong is a 70,000-ton aircraft carrier, a floating fortress carrying dozens of jets, helicopters, and backed by an entire strike group. The Bayani, on the other hand, is smaller, lighter, and built for agility rather than raw muscle. But here's where it gets interesting. Because naval warfare isn't always about who has the bigger ship, it's about who uses their resources smarter. If this were a direct clash in open waters, the Shandong's power is overwhelming. Its J-15 fighters could dominate the skies. Its escort ships could rain down missiles, and its sheer size would make it nearly impossible for a single vessel, like the Bayani, to go toe-to-toe. But that's not the full story. The Bayani's advantage lies in strategy and environment. In the narrow, island-filled waters of the Philippines, massive carriers like the Shandong lose some of their flexibility. Smaller, faster ships can hide, maneuver, and strike from unexpected angles. With the right anti-ship missiles and modern defense systems, even a carrier isn't untouchable. Think about the psychology too. When the Shandong sails, it's about showing power, scaring rivals, and asserting dominance. But when the Bayani sails, it's about resilience and sovereignty. One projects influence across oceans, the other defends its home. In that sense, the Shandong is like a heavyweight boxer, trained to dominate the ring, while the Bayani is more like a scrappy street fighter relying on speed, tactics, and the will to endure. Another factor to consider is alliances. The Shandong represents China's independent strength, but it also faces international scrutiny every time it moves. The Bayani, while smaller, doesn't fight alone. It represents a country that values partnerships, whether with the United States, Japan, or regional allies. In a real-world scenario, that network could make the Bayani's presence much stronger than it looks on paper. So, who's the winner? Well, it depends on what you mean by winning. In raw firepower and size, the Shandong is untouchable. It's the kind of ship that changes the balance of power in a region. But in terms of spirit, symbolism, and defending national waters, the Bayani carries just as much weight in a very different way. The carrier is about dominance. The Bayani is about identity. And that's why this comparison is so compelling. At the end of the day, the Shandong CV-17 and the BRP Bayani don't just represent ships. They represent two different philosophies of power. One is about stretching influence across the seas, The other is about protecting what's yours no matter the odds. And that, my friends, is why this naval face-off isn't just about steel and firepower. It's about heart, strategy, and the stories nations tell through the ships they sail. So tell me, if you had to choose, would you bet on the heavyweight with unstoppable force, or the underdog with unshakable determination? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more epic military comparisons right here on the channel.